Well, evening everybody, and welcome to the 20th week here on Pub Quiz 60. Glad to see some familiar faces coming through on the chat. I think without further ado, I think everyone knows the rules, so I think we'll just go straight into the quiz and have a look and see. Reminder of the rules. The live chat's now been switched off, but as you know, it's all done on a pen and paper. 5 rounds, 10 questions, 1 point each, and a bonus question in each round. There is a 20-second clock on each question just to speed things along, but there is a minute's thinking time at the end of each round. After 3 rounds, we'll mark the first 3, get an idea of the score at the halfway mark, and then come back and do the final 2 rounds. So, and as I say, live chat's switched off currently now, but will be on during the break and at the end as well, so we can get an idea of half-time scores as well as scores at the end. Most importantly though, leave comments on anything, but please be nice. Remember, at the end of the day, it's just for fun. So I think without further ado, we'll go straight into round 1. And round 1 this week is TV and films. And the first question in TV and films is, in the Avengers movies, what is the name of Thor's hammer? In the Avengers movies, what is the name of Thor's hammer? So there will be a 20-second clock here for each question to give you a little bit of thinking time, but like I say, there is a minute's thinking time at the end of each round. But for the moment, a minute on the clock. 20 seconds on the clock, sorry. Okay, that takes us into question 2, which is, what is the name of Humphrey Bogart's character in Casablanca? What is the name of Humphrey Bogart's character in Casablanca? So again, 20 seconds on the clock there. We don't repeat the questions at the end of each round as well, so if you're unsure of any, do just make a note in the side of your paper. You can always come back to that in the thinking time at the end of each round. Takes us on to question 3 in TV and film, and it is, who played Captain James T. Kirk on the original Star Trek series? Who played Captain James T. Kirk on the original Star Trek series? Once again, 20 seconds on the clock there. So it should speed along quite nicely this. Hopefully do the 5 rounds, all the marking and the breaks usually takes just under an hour. So hopefully it doesn't eat too much into your Tuesday evening. And that brings us on to question 4. What does Tom Hanks compare life to in Forrest Gump? What does Tom Hanks compare life to in Forrest Gump? Takes us on to question 5, halfway through the round. What's the pub called in the ITV soap Emmerdale? What's the pub called in ITV soap Emmerdale? That's worth mentioning now that after question 5 in every round there is a bonus question that's worth 2 points and some way related to the information in question 5, but question 5 itself just for 1 point, the question here. So that brings us on to the bonus question, and the bonus question for round 1, TV and film, for 2 points when it comes to marking is, in what year was Emmerdale Farm changed to simply Emmerdale? In what year was Emmerdale Farm changed to simply Emmerdale? So 2 points when it comes to marking these. That gives you a total of 12 points for each round. 5 rounds giving you a total of 60 points in total. So that was 2 points for the bonus questions, but that brings us back to the single point questions again. Question 6 in TV and film. Which comedian has also done the voiceover for Love Island? Which comedian has also done the voiceover for Love Island? And once again, 20 seconds on the clock. Moving on takes us to question 7, and it is, in what 1976 thriller does Robert De Niro famously say, "You talking to me"? In what 1976 thriller does Robert De Niro famously say, "You talking to me"? Just 3 more questions in round 1, TV and film, and question 8 is, what was the name of the tower block where Del Boy and Rodney Trotter lived in Only Fools and Horses? What was the name of the tower block where Del Boy and Rodney Trotter lived in Only Fools and Horses? Just 2 questions to go in the first round. Question 9 is, on what date is the Frank Capra classic It's a Wonderful Life set? On what date is the Frank Capra classic It's a Wonderful Life set? Once again, 20 seconds on the clock. And that brings us rather nicely to the last question in the first round, TV and film, which is question 10, and is, who played Bert in the original Disney classic Mary Poppins? Who played Bert in the original Disney classic Mary Poppins? And once again, 20 seconds on the clock. So that brings us to the end of the first round, round 1, TV and film. What we'll have now is a minute's thinking time, just to finalise any answers you're unsure of in that round, before we come back straight into round 2. There is a minute's thinking time at the end of each round, just to make sure you don't have any blanks. It's worth putting anything in instead of leaving it blank. But we'll have a minute on the clock, starting now. So that's the minute's thinking time over there. Hopefully you managed to get an answer for all questions in round 1. But without further ado, we'll move on to round 2. And round 2 this week is science and nature. And the first question in round 2 is, cirrus and stratus are types of what? Cirrus and stratus are types of what? Once again, 20 seconds for each question. And as before, if you're unsure on any of the answers, make a note in the side of your paper. You can always come back to that again in a minute's thinking time at the end of this and every round. Moving on though, question 2 in science and nature. What do Americans call aubergines? What do Americans call aubergines? And moving on, third question in the Science and Nature round is, what metal does SN stand for on the periodic table? What metal does SN stand for on the periodic table? And once again, 20 seconds there to get your answer. Like I say, there will be a minute's thinking time at the end of this round as well, so if you're unsure on any, just make a note on the side of your paper. You can always come back to it then. That takes us on to question 4, which is, what paper used in chemistry is used to test for acidity and alkalinity? What paper used in chemistry is used to test for acidity and alkalinity? Now, it's worth mentioning at this stage as well that as per the last week's quizzes, spelling isn't the most important thing when you're marking other people's paper or yourselves. If it looks correct, then let's be lenient on any spellings. That takes us on to question 5 in Science and Nature for 1 point. Which legendary British physicist wrote A Brief History of Time? Which legendary British physicist wrote A Brief History of Time? So that's for 1 point, and it's worth mentioning that there'll be a bonus question after this for 2 points, in some way related to the information here on question 5. And here is that bonus question for round 2, for 2 points when it comes to marking. What year was this physicist born? What year was this physicist born? And we'll allow 1 year either side. So the physicist mentioned in question 5, what year were they born? Again, 20 seconds on the clock. So that's the 2 point bonus question, but back to the single point standard questions. Question 6. How many noble gases are there? How many noble gases are there? Speeding through the round here. Question 7, 4 to go in round 2. What name is given to animals such as kangaroos, wallabies and opossums? What name is given to animals such as kangaroos, wallabies and opossums? Once again, 20 seconds there on the clock. Just 3 questions to go in round 2, and question 8 is, hippomania is the obsession with which animal? Hippomania is the obsession with which animal? Once again, 20 seconds thinking time, and a reminder if you're unsure on anything, just make a little note, we will have a minute's thinking time to finalise answers at the end of each round. Just 2 questions to go in round 2, and question 9 is, what does m stand for in the equation E equals mc squared? What does m stand for in the equation E equals mc squared? And that takes us to question 10, the last question in round 2. What is the area of a triangle if its base is 8 centimetres and its height is 5 centimetres? What is the area of a triangle if its base is 8 centimetres and its height is 5 centimetres. Once again, 20 seconds here on the final question in the round. And that brings us nicely to the end of round 2, Science and Nature. So, as before, there's now a minute to finalise any answers you're unsure of. Make sure you don't leave any blanks on your answer sheet, and then we'll come back after that and do round 3. But for the moment, a minute on the clock. So that's a minute's thinking time over there for round 2, Science and Nature. Hopefully it allowed you to fill in any blanks that you might have left, but there is one more round before we come to any marking, so you could always go back and look at rounds 1, 2 or 3 in the minutes at the end of this round. But round 3 this week is children's books. And again, as per round 3 the last few weeks, it's a picture round. All we're asking you to do is simply identify the character or characters from the pictures here that appear in children's books. So if we go into question 1 in round 3, simply name the characters there from that children's book. Once again, 20 seconds on the clock. Now it's worth mentioning that we won't be showing the pictures again, so if you're unsure of any, then it's certainly worth taking a picture on your phone or a screen grab on your laptop, however you're playing. You can always come back to it in the minute's thinking time at the end. But like I say, we won't be showing any of the pictures again, so you will need to take a picture somehow, screen grab or a picture on your phone. If you're unsure, you can come back to it in the minute's thinking time. But that was question 1. Moving on to question 2. One simple question again, simply name the character from the children's book. Brings us on to question 3. One simple question again. Simply name that character from a children's book. And again, 20 seconds on the clock. Going along at a good pace, so question 4, once again, simply name that character from a children's book, and 20 seconds on the clock. And that takes us halfway through the round to question 5 for 1 point. Once again, simply name that character from a children's book. And there's 20 seconds on the clock. A reminder though, there will be a bonus question again after question 5 for 2 points in some way related to the info here in question 5. And that does bring us into that bonus question here for round 3, children's books. For 2 points, when it comes to marking, the question is, who wrote the series of books containing this character? Who wrote the series of books containing this character? So that's the character mentioned or seen in question 5. Who wrote the series of books? Once again, 20 seconds on the clock. So 2 points for that question when it comes to marking, but moving on to question 6 for 1 point. Simple question again, name that character from a children's book. And again, 20 seconds on the clock. Now we're over halfway through the round into question 7 on children's books. Once again, simple question, can you identify that character from a children's book? And 20 seconds on the clock. Just 3 more questions to go in the children's book picture round, and question 8. Once again, can you identify that character? Just 2 questions to go in round 3 picture round. Question 9. Once again, can you identify that character from a children's book? 20 seconds on the clock. And that brings us to the last question, question 10 in the picture round. Last simple question, can you identify that character from children's books? 20 seconds there on the clock. So that brings us to the end of round 3, the children's books picture round. We'll now have a minute now just to finalise any answers you're unsure of on that. So hopefully if there's any you didn't know, you have taken a picture on your phone or your laptop just to come back to. We won't be showing the pictures again. But if you can also use this minute to finalise any answers you're unsure of in round 1, TV and film, and round 2, science and nature. Because when we come back from this minute's finalising thinking time, then we'll be marking rounds 1 to 3. So it'll be a minute on the clock now, just to finalise any answers for those first 3 rounds before we go into the marking. Minute on the clock, starting now. Okay, so that's the final minute's thinking time there for the first 3 rounds. So hopefully you managed to get an answer in. There's no blanks left on your answer sheets for rounds 1 to 3, because what we're going to do now is mark those first 3 rounds. Now I won't be putting the questions up on screen, I'll just go through them quite quickly and read out the answers. So if you mark as you go along, And as I said earlier, let's be lenient on spellings. If it looks like it's the answer, then it's certainly worth giving the points. At the end of the day, this is all just for fun. So if we go back to round one, that was TV and film. The first question was, in the Avengers movie, what is the name of Thor's hammer? Well, that is Mjolnir. It's spelled Mjolnir. So that's one where spelling might come in. Mjolnir, but pronounced Mjolnir. Mjolnir. Question 2, what was the name of Humphrey Bogart's character in Casablanca? Well, back from 1942, that was Rick Blaine. Rick Blaine. Question 3, who played Captain James T. Kirk on the original Star Trek series? Well, that was William Shatner, the 89-year-old William Shatner. Question 4, what does Tom Hanks compare life to in Forrest Gump? Well, he compares life to a box of chocolates. Question 5, what's the pub called in ITV soap Emmerdale? It's known as the Woolpack. The Woolpack. For 1 point for that, but then the bonus question for 2 points, in what year was Emmerdale Farm changed to simply Emmerdale? Well, that was back in 1989. 1989. No year either side, it's 89 or nothing there for 2 points. Back to the single point questions though. Question 6, which comedian has also done the voiceover for Love Island? Well, that is the 32-year-old Ian Sterling. Ian Sterling there for 1 point. Question 7, in what 1976 thriller does Robert De Niro say "You talking to me"? Well, that was in Taxi Driver. Question 8, what was the name of the tower block where Del Boy and Rodney live in Only Fools and Horses? Well, the tower block is known as Nelson Mandela House. Nelson Mandela House. Question 9, on what date is the Frank Capra classic It's a Wonderful Life set? It is set on Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve. And then the last question, question 10, in TV and film, who played Bert in the original Disney classic Mary Poppins? Well, that is, now 94 years old, Dick Van Dyke. Dick Van Dyke. So a possible 12 points available there in the first round, TV and film. So if you want to just jot that down, and then we can add the totals to the next couple of rounds as we go along. But marking round 2 now, science and nature. The first question was, cirrus and stratus are types of what? Well, they are both clouds. Question 2, what do Americans call aubergines? They call them eggplants. Eggplants. Question 3, what metal does Sn stand for in the periodic table? Well, it's from the Latin stannum, and the element is tin. It stands for tin. Sn is tin. Question 4, what paper used in chemistry tests for acidity and alkalinity? That is litmus paper. Question 5, which legendary physicist wrote A Brief History of Time? That is Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking for 1 point. And then the bonus question for 2 points, what year was this physicist born? Well, 1 year either side, but he was born in 1942. 1942, 8th of January 1942. So 2 points there if you said 1941, 42 or 43. Back to the single point questions. Question 6 for 1 point. How many noble gases are there? Well, there are 6 noble gases. Helium, argon, krypton, neon, xenon and radon. 6 noble gases. Question 7, what name is given to animals such as kangaroos, wallabies and opossums? Well, they're known as marsupials. Question 8, hippomania is the obsession with which animal? Well, that is the obsession with horses. Horses for 1 point. Well done if you got that. Question 9, what does M stand for in the equation E equals mc squared? Well, M stands for mass. Mass. E stands for energy and C stands for the speed of light. And question 10, the last one in science and nature, what is the area of a triangle if its base is 8 centimetres and its height is 5? Well, the formula for that, the area of a triangle is half base times height, so you would get 20 centimetres squared. 20 centimetres squared. So again, 12 points available there if you want to add that to your first round. Running total so far up to 24. But now we'll go back into marking round 3, children's books and the picture round. Identifying the character or characters from the pictures. Question 1, well, that was The Famous Five. The Famous Five, first published back in 1942. Question 2, that is Rupert Bear, or Rupert the Bear. He's actually known as Rupert Bear, but changed and more commonly known as Rupert the Bear after the theme song from the TV programme. But Rupert Bear officially, but we'll take Rupert the Bear. Question 3, that's Mrs. Tiggywinkle. Question 4 was The Cat in the Hat. Question 5 was The Gruffalo for 1 point. And then the bonus question for 2 points, who wrote the series of books containing this character? Well, that series of books was written by Julia Donaldson. Julia Donaldson, so well done for 2 points if you got that. Back to the single points, so question 6 was spot the dog. Spot the dog. Question 7 from Winnie the Pooh, that is Piglet, there for 1 point. Question 8, the last one, is the very hungry caterpillar. The very hungry caterpillar. And then question 9 was Roald Dahl's The BFG, Big Friendly Giant, or BFG, either or. And then the last one, the elephant there, 1931, that is Bar Bar the Elephant. Bar Bar the Elephant. So that brings us to the end of the marking for the first 3 rounds. So there's a possible points total there of 36. What we'll do now is we'll have a 5-minute break, and during that I'll pop the live chat on, but it gives you 5 minutes to go and grab a drink, bite to eat, open the door, let the dog out, stretch your legs, whatever you need to do. But we'll come back in 5 minutes' time. The live chat is now live again to pop down your scores. I think anything above 25 up to 30 would be a good score. Anything higher than that, an absolutely superb score. But for the moment, 5 minutes on the clock, and then we'll come back after that to do rounds 4 and 5. So 5 minutes on the clock. Okay, so that's a quick 5-minute break over there. Hopefully enough time for you to go and stretch your legs, and let the dog out, open the window, whatever you need to do. But now we're back. We'll go back straight away into rounds 4, which this week again is a connection round. Now the first 9 answers will all have a common connection. Question 10 will simply be get that connection, but it'll all make sense as we go along. First question in round 4 is, what is the name of the best-selling Xbox 360 game that features the character Marcus Phoenix? What is the name of the best-selling Xbox 360 game that features the character Marcus Phoenix? Again, 20 seconds on the clock here, but there will be a minute's thinking time at the end of this round as well, so if you're unsure on any answers, do jot something down at the side of your paper before we move on. Takes us to question 2 in the connections round. In the business term used for analysis and measuring, KPI, what does the I stand for? In the business term used for analysis and measuring, KPI, what does the I stand for? So because it's a connection round, all the answers have some sort of connection between them, and that'll be the answer to question 10. So as the round, you get more and more answers. If you have one you're not sure of, it might be more obvious once you know the connection. That takes us to question 3, which is, which German war film, released in 1981, is based around the submarine U-96 during the Battle of the Atlantic? Which German war film, released in 1981, is based around the submarine U-96 during the Battle of the Atlantic? And once again, 20 seconds on the clock. That takes us on to question 4, which is, what is the name for a lady's bag most commonly used during the evening, which has no handles and is rectangular in shape? What is the name for a lady's bag most commonly used during the evening, which has no handles and is rectangular in shape? Again, 20 seconds there on the clock. So hopefully by now you've got 4 answers, and maybe you've established what the connection between all those 4 answers could be. Moving on to question 5, which is, what name is shared by an island in Tasmania and headwear most commonly worn by women and girls during Easter? What name is shared by an island in Tasmania and headwear most commonly worn by women and girls during Easter? And once again, 20 seconds there on the clock. Now that's question 5 there for 1 point, but as for the previous rounds as well, there's now a bonus question for 2 points, which is in some way related to question 5. And the bonus question here for 2 points is, what is the capital city of Tasmania? What is the capital city of Tasmania? Again, 20 seconds there on the clock. Now we're making good time so far, so hopefully the quiz as a whole should all be done before 9 o'clock, so hopefully it hasn't eaten too much into your Tuesday evening. So that was for 2 points there, the bonus question, but back to the single question here. Question 6 for 1 point. Beginning with D, what is the name of the punctuation mark that is similar to a hyphen, but differing primarily in length and serving different functions? Long question. Beginning with D, what is the name of the punctuation mark that is similar to a hyphen, but differing primarily in length and serving different functions? Once again, 20 seconds there on the clock. And that takes us on to question 7. Also known as dodgems, what is the generic name for a type of flat ride consisting of several small electrically powered cars which draw power from the floor and or the ceiling? Also known as dodgems, what is the generic name for a type of flat ride consisting of several small electrically powered cars which draw power from the floor and or the ceiling? Once again, 20 seconds on the clock. So hopefully by now you're slowly establishing what the connection could be, which may help in actually answering the individual questions that are missing in questions 1 to 9. Just 3 questions to go in the connection round. Question 8 is: the Pearl Bridge in Japan, the Humber Bridge in the UK, and the Golden Gate Bridge in the US are all examples of what type of bridge? The Pearl Bridge in Japan, the Humber Bridge in the UK, and the Golden Gate Bridge in the US are all examples of what type of bridge? That's 20 seconds there on the clock. So there's one last connection, and question 9 is: what term is given to a summary of any piece of fiction that reveals plot elements which will give away the outcome of a dramatic episode or the conclusion of the entire work? What term is given to a summary of any piece of fiction that reveals plot elements which will give away the outcome of a dramatic episode or the conclusion of the entire work? 20 seconds there on the clock. Now, this is the last of the actual connections. Question 10 will simply be what's the connection? But hopefully by now you have an idea of what's connecting them, which may help to fill in any blanks you have in previous answers. And that brings us to the final question in the connection round, question 10, and it is simply: what is the shared connection between the first 9 answers, excluding the bonus? What is the shared connection between the first 9 answers? And again, 20 seconds there on the clock. So that's the end of round 4, the connections round. As before now, we'll have a minute just to finalise any answers you're unsure of. If it's one of those ones where you've managed to work out the connection and there are some blanks, that might certainly help. But a minute now on the clock before we come back to do the 5th and final round, which as ever will be general knowledge. But for the moment, a minute on the clock. So that's the minute's thinking time over there for round 4, the connections round. We're just coming to one last round now before we get into final marking. And round 5, as ever, is general knowledge. And the first question in round 5 is: which Frenchman scored the first Premier League hat-trick? Which Frenchman scored the first Premier League hat-trick? And again, 20 seconds on the clock. Once again, it's worth mentioning there will be a minute's thinking time at the end of this to get any of the answers you're unsure of, both in this round and the connections round. Question 2 in general knowledge is: the UK sitcom Gavin and Stacey was written by Ruth Jones and which other comedian? The UK sitcom Gavin and Stacey was written by Ruth Jones and which other comedian? That's 20 seconds there on the clock. And after this, we'll mark rounds 4 and 5, and then I'll leave the live chat open after that for any final scores and any final comments. But in the meantime, we'll go into question 3 in general knowledge, which is: Catalonia is a region of what country? Catalonia is a region of what country? Once again, there's 20 seconds there on the clock. Moving on to question 4 in general knowledge, which is: in which month does the star sign Scorpio begin? In which month does the star sign Scorpio begin? And there's 20 seconds there. That brings us to halfway through round 5, the final round, and question 5 for 1 point is: which comedy actress and writer played the characters Mrs. Merton and Denise Royal? Which comedy actress and writer played the characters Mrs. Merton and Denise Royal? Once again, 20 seconds there on the clock. So that was for 1 point there, question 5, but now a bonus question related to that. For 2 points in the general knowledge round when it comes to marking: how old was this actress when she died in 2016? How old was this actress when she died in 2016? So that's the actress mentioned in question 5, and we'll allow 1 year either side. So 2 points when it comes to marking for the bonus question there, but back to the single point questions again. Question 6 in general knowledge: what is the name of the rabbit in the Disney film Bambi? What is the name of the rabbit in the Disney film Bambi? So just 4 more questions to go in the round and the quiz as a whole. Question 7 in general knowledge: which record label was the subject of a song on the Sex Pistols' debut album? Which record label was the subject of a song on the Sex Pistols' debut album? 20 seconds thinking time on the clock there. And that takes us on to question 8, and that is: Woman's Hour is a long-running programme on which BBC radio station? Woman's Hour is a long-running programme on which BBC radio station? And once again, 20 seconds on the clock. Just 2 questions remaining in the round and the quiz. Question 9 in general knowledge is: Gary and Martin Kemp were in what 80s pop band? Gary and Martin Kemp were in what 80s pop band? Once again, 20 seconds there on the clock. And that brings us to the last question in the round and the whole quiz, question 10, which is: who said this famous quote? If you can't handle me at my worst, then you sure as hell don't deserve me at my best. Who said, if you can't handle me at my worst, then you sure as hell don't deserve me at my best? One final 20 seconds on the clock. So that brings us to the end of round 5, general knowledge, and the end of the quiz as a whole. So what we'll do now is have a minute just to finalise any answers you're unsure of, either in the general knowledge round or round 4, the connections round, before we come back and mark those last 2 rounds and get an idea then of final scores. At the end of the quiz, and when that's all done, I'll put the live chat on again so we can write down final scores, see who's won and any other comments. But for the moment, a minute on the clock just to finalise answers for those last 2 rounds. Okay, so that's the final minutes thinking over for those last 2 rounds. Hopefully enough time there for you to fill in any blanks or any answers you're unsure of, because what we're going to do now is mark rounds 4 and 5. So back to round 4, which was the connections round, but the first question that was: what is the name of the best-selling Xbox game that features the character Marcus Phoenix? Well, that is Gears of War. Gears of War, which has taken over $1 billion in revenue for one game. Question 2, in the business term used for analysis, KPI, what does I stand for? Well, that stands for indicator, in the phrase key performance indicator, or indicators. Question 3, which German war film, released in 1981, is about a submarine during the Battle of the Atlantic? Well, that is Das Boot. Das Boot. Question 4, again for 1 point, what is the name for a lady's bag most commonly used during the evening? Rectangular in shape, no handles. That is a clutch bag. Question 5, again for 1 point, what name is shared by an island in Tasmania and headwear most commonly worn during Easter? That is a bonnet. Bonnet for 1 point. The bonus question related to that though for 2 points, what is the capital city of Tasmania? Well, the capital is Hobart. Hobart, 2 points, well done if you got that. Question 6, beginning with D, what is the name of the punctuation mark similar to a hyphen but serving different functions? Well, that is a dash. Dash. Question 7, also known as dodgems. What is the name of the ride consisting of small cars that draw power from the floor and ceiling? They are bumper cars. Bumper cars. Question 8, the Pearl Bridge, the Humber Bridge and Golden Gate are examples of what type of bridge? They are all suspension bridges. Question 9, what term is given to a summary or any piece of fiction that reveals plot elements or outcome of a dramatic episode? They are spoilers. Spoiler. So that's the first 9 questions. Question 10 was, what is the shared connection between those first 9 answers? And they are all parts of a car. All parts of a car. So you had Gears of War, indicator, Das Boot, clutch bag, bonnet, the dash, bumper, cars, suspension, and spoiler. So all parts of a car. So anything similar to that, car parts, things to do with a car, 1 point there if you got the connection. That takes us to the last round, general knowledge. With first question, which Frenchman scored the first Premier League hat-trick? Well, it was back in 1992 against Leeds for Manchester United, and it was Eric Cantona. Eric Cantona. Question 2, the UK sitcom Gavin and Stacey was written by Ruth Jones and which other comedian? It's the 41-year-old James Corden. James Corden. Question 3, Catalonia is a region of what country? Well, it's a region of Spain. Question 4, in what month does the star sign Scorpio begin? Well, that begins in October. October. Question 5, for 1 point, which comedy actress and writer played the characters Mrs. Merton and Denise Royal? Well, that was Caroline Aherne. Caroline Aherne, for 1 point. And then the bonus question related to that, for 2 points. How old was this actress when she died in 2016? We'll give her a year either side. Well, she was 52 years old. 52, Caroline Aherne was when she died. So 2 points there if you got 51, 52, or 53. Then back to the single point questions. Question 6, what is the name of the rabbit in the Disney film Bambi? That is Thumper. Thumper the rabbit. Question 7, which record label was the subject of a song on the Sex Pistols' debut album? Well, they were singing about EMI. EMI. Question 8, Woman's Hour is a long-running programme on which BBC radio station? Well, it's been running since October 1946, and it runs now on BBC Radio 4. BBC Radio 4. Question 9, Gary and Martin Kemp were in what 1980s band? Well, they were both members of Spandau Ballet. Spandau Ballet. And then question 10, who said the quote, if you can't handle me at my worst, then you sure as hell don't deserve me at my best? Well, that was a quote from Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe. So that's the quiz over there. The 5 rounds there with 12 points possible in each. So hopefully you've got a score there, a total possible of 60. As ever, any score that's anywhere near 50 is a good score. Any score 45 plus, equally as good. But the live chat's now live. If you want to pop down any of your comments there, see how you got on, and an idea who's won. But that's it for this week. 20 weeks down on lockdown. So hopefully see you again the same place, same time next week for week 21. But for the moment, I'll leave the live chat on for about 5 minutes or so to see your scores and your comments. But look forward to seeing you again next week. All the best.